I don't know. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. Thought, I know we've been kind of starting with some quiet each week, and I thought because we were doing the body this week, we do a body scan. I don't know if that's familiar to anybody, but it's kind of nice or different. It's called a body scan. Yeah, and so it's just a way to kind of check in. I feel like somebody else in the group should probably lead it instead of me, but I'll just give it a go. And
We do a lot in intro psych, or occasionally intro psych.
would you like to lead it?
Done one in a long time. Okay, so.
Still have more practice than me.
Yeah, probably. Okay, so this is just something that we do in psych classes, just to kind of give students an idea about where you're carrying tension in your body. Because we talk a lot about stress and the impact that it has on our psychology and also on our cardiovascular system, and they're importantly interconnected. So just kind of take a second and I want you to stretch. Feel where your body is. You're gonna just extend your hands out in front of you. Just a breath. I want you to just sink into your chair. Okay. Now, as we're here, I want you to just pay attention to how your body feels as it eases into the chair. Just kind of be mindful of where your hands are as they're maybe resting on the armrests. Maybe notice the texture under your fingers. Now I want you to pay attention to where your hips are sitting. To make sure they're nice and situated up against the back of the chair. Let's relax our legs and make sure that our feet are nice and flat on the ground. If you can reach the ground, Andrew. If you can't, that's okay. Now, let's start at the top of our head. And I want you to feel where you're maybe carrying some tension. You feel like you have a lot of tension in your forehead or in your eyebrows. Just kind of relax those. I want you to let that tension just drain down into your neck. Are you feeling any tension in your jaw, even clenching your jaw? Maybe just kind of open your jaw nice and wide and just kind of feel that relax a little bit. We're just going to let that tension just again drain down into our neck. Back of our head, back of our neck, maybe if you have like headaches that start there, feel like a strained muscle. Relax your neck just gently side to side. And I just want you to just take a breath. Follow that tension and just release it. And let's move down into our shoulders. Shoulders work really hard for us throughout the day. If you're carrying any weight or any tension there, just kind of roll your shoulders a little bit, maybe forward or back. And they really work pretty hard for you. Just give them a nice stretch. Just feel that tension again as it moves out of your shoulders. Just take a deep breath here and just let it pass. Just relax those muscles. See how your arms are doing. And just kind of let them sit where they are. Because again, your tension in your shoulders can sometimes get referred down into your arms. Let's just kind of relax those hands, stretch them out just a little bit. Let's move down into our chest. Again, our shoulders can sometimes refer a lot of tension down into our chest as well. If you've had any anxiety, might have felt really, really tense here. Just take a big, deep breath. It's a really good way to just let all of that stress just kind of move its way down from your chest and drain out of your arms, and drain out of your chest. And we're just going to do another big, deep breath. And as we exhale, we're just going to breathe that out. Just let that stress drain out of where your chest is, down into your core, down into your stomach. Any indigestion, or maybe you've been carrying a lot of tension down here. Maybe you've had a lot of cramps recently. Maybe your back has been bothering you. You've kind of been feeling any tension there. Just really just let the chair take your weight here for just a second and just let those muscles take a break. So that everything just sort of passed from there. Take a big breath and breathe down into your belly this time. Breathe that out. Okay. Let's move into our butt. It is the strongest muscle in your body. It works way harder than you think it does. Just kind of let it relax as you're breathing here. Just let everything sort of drain out through your glutes, down into your legs. And can you feel how hard your legs have been working? How hard they've been carrying you? Really powerful muscles. Just kind of breathe there. And again, let all that tension just drain out of those. Let's move down into our calves here. How are those feeling? They've been tense too. You had any cramps there? Just breathe and maybe just stretch those briefly just to say hello to them. Tense those calves just a bit and release them. And I want you to feel all of the stress from your body just kind of drain down into your feet and out into the floor. Let's just hang here for 30 seconds and just feel your body and listen to what it's telling you. Quietly bring you back to the rest of the room. Just want to be gentle here because I know you've been listening to your body. I want you to just sort of lift your head up and just deep breath, breathe in, breathe out. Okay, that feels pretty good. Just kind of check in with yourself here. All right, open your eyes. And what did you hear your body trying to tell you? Where did it hurt? Where did you feel like you were carrying your stress?
My shoulders and
Mhm.
up, yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty common one. Anybody else feel like they need a nap now?
Yeah.
I know, and that's why I try to ease back into consciousness a little bit after that. Just because it's just like, oh, hey, everybody, let's jump in, it's just too jarring. So anybody else feeling any tension in any particular locations? In your chest? Yeah, yeah, I feel it there a lot.
My jaw.
Yeah, jaw.
And then my gut.
Hey, yeah.
And I used to listen to body scans for sleep at night
Mhm.
to get to sleep because, and this is the first place I find it as you go down. So,
Yeah.
okay, quit clenching your jaw.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that deep breathing as a way to relax.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to make a distinction between if you're breathing through your chest versus breathing down here. There can be, again, a psychological difference in sort of the experience of, okay, what am I actually noticing about my abdomen? Like, yeah.
So the yoga gal I used to take classes from said, taking a deep breath is like massaging all your internal organs. And so that's kind of the feeling I try to envision that those organs are getting a
Yeah.
massage from deep breathing.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything that your body told you or sort of like, hey, this area hurts more than I thought it did?
I'm way off balance, like I say off balance, but like one side is more tense than the other, which of course over time, like puts so much strain on the counter, what do you call it? Like the compensation. So it's like if one side is tighter and things aren't aligned, then the other side like tries to compensate. So I have kind of a long history of, I think, that creating soreness and stiffness and stuff. And I'm like, oh, they're kind of like all wound up on this side, and it's like I don't sit like the feeling of sitting on my chair is like this.
Huh. So
You
you're
ever notice that?
leaning and
Like if
clenching towards one side more?
Yeah, it's like maybe if a hip is tense, or sometimes you can sense it in your shoulders, or like if you lay flat on the ground and you ask yourself like, do I sense that my shoulders are both resting on the ground equally, or like my glutes are both resting, and it always kind of feels just slightly
Mhm.
tense on the side. So I noticed that.
Anybody else?
I had like the opposite reaction with some of those things. I don't know if it's because I have hypermobility or if it's a sensory thing for me. I really feel more solid with things contacting each other. So whether it's having my legs crossed or my fingers folded,
Mhm.
like at a certain part when you did that, I really just wanted to sit on the ground to feel more contact
Mhm.
with my body
Mhm.
on a surface. And I don't, like I said, I don't know if it's a sensory thing or whether it's as a person who's had hypermobile joints, there's that sense of like, I want things to be held together.
Yeah.
And when when you use your muscles to do that all the time, and then you're telling yourself, let those muscles go,
Yeah.
it actually kind of feels uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Like, the thing that your body does all the time to keep it in working order is taken away. So I don't know. I have a hard time fully letting go with all of that stuff because I feel the need to anchor myself somewhere.
Mhm.
Which is why I really like doing it flat in bed at night.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that feeling of everything having support or
Yeah.
contact.
And I was trying to keep that in mind. That's why I was trying to emphasize like the contact with the chair when we're getting to the lower back, making sure you're seated against it and then like surrendering your weight to the chair so you have something to sit back into. And sometimes when people do this exercise, they feel like there's this counter reaction of I don't have anywhere safe to retreat to. I need to feel protection somewhere. So I was trying to again focus on that thought with kind of connecting with the ground and in the chair. Maybe I should have had you slide that one. Little exercise. But people walk in and like, why is everybody on the ground?
Well, thank you for
Sure.
that. We've kind of taken a moment of quiet each time, but I do think I wasn't introduced to this until well into my adulthood and in, dealing with a lot of kids from trauma and then carrying so much tension in our own nervous systems as we're kind of around unpredictability all the time. And it's so surprising to me. I'll pause or let me skip. But I think that so often when for me, inviting God to speak into a thing so often seems like finding a loose thread and pulling on it. And, it's like it's getting curious about something that's happening. Like, why am I so stiff? Might be something in your body, or like, just what contributed. It's a curiosity. It's not fixing as much as it is like, whoa, what? I reacted in a way that I wish I hadn't. Like, okay, that's the thread. And then it's like, God, what's going on here? And it becomes an invitation, a conversation. And by pulling the thread, there's awarenesses that like God brings up. And I did not grow up in a world where the body was a thing in so many different ways. And I see nodding. So I'm super curious what came up in the chapter. But I feel like a body scan has become a bit of that too, because sometimes she mentions it in the chapter, but like, I think our brains can compensate and be like, oh, you're just this, or oh, you're like, we have all these narratives and we're busy about it, or we can convince ourselves like, well, whatever. But body will tell, and so sometimes just noticing those things can become a thread to what is contributing to these things, and then examining that or inviting that into that thread pulling, I suppose. So it'd be interesting. So thanks. Oh, did somebody have something to say? I thought I heard a a preparatory. Okay, so I want to review where we've been really fast, and I'm just gonna say these things slowly, in case there's something for you that comes up and remembering where we've been, and then we'll move into discussing the body. So the first week we read and discussed desire. And Jesus's question to us, what is it that you want me to do for you? So I'm just inviting you to remember what came up for you at that time. And then the next week was solitude and considering sitting alone with God and making time for that. And the next week was Lectio Divina, or that kind of reflective, not reflective, but spacious reading of scripture. And then last week she explored prayer, specifically breath prayer, which we didn't talk about, but I wonder if that's something that struck somebody as something they wanted to return to or use. So breath prayer. Okay, and today we're talking about honoring the body, which I will confess so much came up for me this week in this chapter. And I just read this book cover to cover a couple weeks ago. So it was a little surprising, that you can just pull the thread, or you can open the conversation again and be like, whoa. So I want to start there, but of course, like usual, we're really just talking about experiencing God. However, wherever that's coming up, wherever is on our minds and hearts. But let's kind of start with the chapter. What resonated with you? Was there something that you kind of reacted to, or what? I definitely saw nods about childhood things. I'd be interested in hearing if anybody has kind of a journey in this, or I don't know. What comes up for you?
I guess where it gets challenging, I feel like I've had points where it's been over spiritualized and under spiritualized. And so there's definitely that place of if there's something wrong with your body, then there's something wrong with your faith. Or if there's something wrong with your body, or something isn't right and you need to get right with God, and that's why there's a problem. And then I've also experienced the polar opposite of that, where it's almost not Gnostic, but your spirit and your body are completely separate. And so therefore we don't talk about the body at all because it's something that's not sacred or whatever. And so I feel like I've just experienced both of those contexts, and I don't really know where a healthy place is because that's what I've experienced. I've always kind of viewed my body as being outside the spiritual realm because I've never learned a healthy way to handle it.
And she mentions this, but in my lifetime, I feel like discussion of life in the body has primarily been, the trying to physically match some kind of a image. It's exercise or food or whatever, not with the conversation being about something healthy, but just rather an emphasis on looks or weight or whatever, which then becomes something I don't want to participate in because it becomes this other stirring up, you know?
I would say, the first thing I think is shame when it comes to body. And there was the whole, weight was a huge issue in my mom's family, all of her sisters. And it was kind of trying to be this ideal body shape. And we would never talk about anything intimate related to sexuality. I mean, it was just like it had to be perfect on the exterior, but we really didn't talk about. So I say there was a great deal of shame because it never would be the perfect body.
Yeah, you can't live up, you can't.
Yeah, and sexuality was shameful to talk about.
Yeah.
I remember the number of inches your skirt could be above your knee. I mean, honestly, I do remember
Yeah.
when you couldn't wear pants to church. I mean, you covered it up.
And that's also a thing I think that's different for women because our bodies are bound up in the concept that we were supposed to prepare ourselves for our future husband and keep him happy, which is terrible. But also like, I mean, I don't know, they walk this fine line, like the underlying tone is that, but also not really, because if you're just a spiritually godly woman, then none of it should matter, but also this too. And so I think for women, it's just there's some things bound up in it that are different than probably for men, whether it was explicitly spoken or not, it was implied. Thankfully, I ended with this guy who doesn't care, so I'm good.
About your body.
Well, I know,
but see, right? I mean, well, and it is a thing where because there's so much negativity and toxicity directed towards physical being in church spaces and in church conversations, there's a lot of unpacking that you have to do when you were dealing with the physical realities of having a body. Like in psych, we have a very, very different, more holistic view in the field of psychology, where we make no distinction between the brain and the mind. And like if something changes in the brain, you end up changing the mind and changing the way that a person thinks. We don't really see a distinction between the body and the soul because the soul is not something that you can demonstrate exists, right? But I can absolutely show you people who've had injuries, TBIs, surgeries on the brain, tumors growing in certain places that have remarkably changed who they are and their personalities. Like psychology is an extremely physical way to think about the world, right? And that made me realize, well, let me put it this way. The very first time we did an anatomy exercise in grad school, where I got to go to the cadaver lab for the first time, and I got to hold a brain. It was one of the most profound spiritual experiences of my life, even though I'm studying the technical anatomy of the brain. And I'm identifying like where the supramarginal gyrus is, and I'm looking at the corpus callosum. I'm looking at hemi heads that have been bisected so you can see the cross section of internal structures. And there was just this moment of holding this thing that's only about this big in your hands and realizing this is an entire person's life. And every memory that they have ever had is right here inside this physical system. And that was what I could only describe as a sacred experience. But like, that's a physical thing, right? And I'm honoring that person's body, honoring their experiences by really looking at who they were in that moment. And that really, it led me to kind of begin to unpack some of this stuff and realize, I've got a body. It's something I can't just ignore. And sometimes it wants things that frustrate me. It wants to eat like the entire jar of M&Ms that's in front of me. I really shouldn't. Or it thinks that a full healthy serving of Oreos is one sleeve and not just a few. But there are also moments where I have really learned to listen to it. It's been right about oh, this chest pain you're having is not just a rib out of place, it's something that you need to go to the hospital for. Or we're having a bad day, we're having a migraine, you need to take it slow. Or I just listen to it a lot more when I'm tired and need to lie down and take a nap, right? And I almost feel better afterwards. I mean, it does a good job of telegraphing to me things that I need. And we sort of are taught it's an unreliable thing. If it's asking for something, what it's asking for is bad, or what it's asking for is wrong. And that has just not been my experience. When I really pay attention to it, it has done more to help me than harm me, except where food is concerned. And then it's very much, it wants to eat everything it possibly can. But I kind of don't blame it for that, because when we're looking at evolutionary history, we evolved as much as we know whatever food's available, but that's a whole other thing. This is me explaining why the jar of Costco M&Ms has emptied so quickly at my house. So
Then why do you buy it?
because I listen to my body. My body was like, this is
No. We bought,
Brady would so appreciate those.
I was thinking about the Cheetos thing.
we bought it for s'mores night. We bought it to share with others.
share with others, and
But
then,
they didn't eat it all before they left.
no, so it's their fault. It's not mine. My body's just doing what it wants to do. I'm just right.
It's interesting because as you were talking, I realized, and I'm not familiar with everybody's church backgrounds. I know you guys are vocal about your evangelical background, and we're probably the same way, but I know that everybody's backgrounds are different. And as you were talking though, I started to think, oh, I wonder if there was unknowingly this conflation, if that's the right word, of the body and the flesh. Like,
Yes,
oh,
100%.
oh. I'm like, talk to me, somebody.
Yeah, because I mean, with those passages from Paul that talk about the flesh, or sarx, I think is the term that they use in the Greek for that. He very much conceptualizes it as a sinful thing, but you have to hold that in tension with the fact that Paul also talks about a physical resurrection more than any other person in the Bible. And the idea that there will be redemption for the physical world, and it's not just going to go away, that we are going to get to keep our bodies, and we will have a physical body, because we'll be physical beings living in, not heaven's not just being an abstract thing, but a restored physical creation, right? So I think that when he's talking about the sinful flesh, I think that he's referring to it more in the terms of basically a sort of a form of spiritual darkness that we struggle with in the body. It's like giving in to evil desires, not just listening to, we're hungry or we need a nap, right? I mean, not confusing basic survival signals or psychological drives and physical drives like food, sex, shelter, water. Like these are all things that we need. And we confuse that with, oh, if my body craves it, it must be bad. Right, because I think of that misunderstanding of those passages.
Yeah, there was never a distinct, I don't recall having caught or being taught a sense that, it's like, I do know that the sense was that the flesh is just the things that you want for the sake of having them, right? Or that just kind of just drives whatever, and to kind of be able to hold those up and look at them and evaluate them or whatever. But it's always like really suspect, right? And overly so probably in that background. But then they're maybe without the conversation about bodies, or whatever, then it's like, then they become one thing instead of recognizing that. I think he is talking about like he is saying like the desires of the flesh, right? Like these objects that we would like put in front of ourselves. But I don't know that I ever heard or sensed it or caught a distinction of like, there is something else also, right? Like there is Paul also says, right, I beat my body and make it my slave, right? So he's also like, he is somehow doing positive, like forwarding somehow in his body. It might not have been the best example there, but because there was so much cynicism around the flesh, and there wasn't a conversation about the body, I wonder if it just like, took the whole.
I think it's a very poorly explored area of Christian psychology. very dimly explored. I can hear you thinking, go ahead.
And I can hear Chris thinking too.
I just had a thought pop into my head because I think a lot of times in the former tradition that I was in, the kingdom of God was looked at something that was other and something you get to at some point after you die and separate. But as I've come through the journey that I've gone through and explored more about the kingdom being here present in the world, in addition to being something outside the world. And I just wonder if that has something to do with how we view anything here. Like inherently bad versus there's this good thing that's here. And so, there's this big separation between those two things versus, well, it's not perfect right now, but there's an element of God here in this world and the goodness of that and taking that into account. I wonder if part of that theology is what blends into how we think about a variety of different things, and maybe the body is part of that.
Mhm.
I guess I think whenever you use the word flesh, it seems like it's always associated with temptation. But just the body, I mean, to me, that's associated with creation, like a baby and
Great way to say that.
all these wonderful things. And then when you think of it in terms of creation too, just how wonderfully our bodies work
Mhm.
and all the things that are involved and how, it's very complicated, but it's just amazing, And then I think that we tend to take our bodies for granted. If you've
Yeah,
ever become ill or, had a disease or something, you realize that they're vulnerable too,
I like that distinction of, like, or having words to put to that, like flesh is about temptation, but maybe the body should be about creation.
That's exactly where my head was going. God created those bodies. He said they were beautiful. And
Yeah.
it wasn't just
Yeah.
their soul that was
Yeah,
beautiful.
right.
Their bodies were beautiful.
It is good, it is very good.
And I think we can think of that when we think of animals,
Mhm.
that dog or that cat, it's perfect, it's,
It's the yours.
it's
They're so
just
cute.
amazing, or whatever,
And God has
the
a sense of-
giraffe, but
God has a sense of humor.
but so are we, in terms of the creation.
When we talk about being the body of Christ together, but that seems like it gives a more positive idea of a body.
Well, and the fact that our being created was the last thing he created. He made sure that everything we were gonna need was already here.
And physically so.
Yeah.
To
Right.
sustain, yeah.
Right. My ancient Jewish thinking really didn't make much of a distinction between, like, when we're talking about spirit, we think of it sort of as but it was just breath. Like, that's what the word originally meant, was the ability to breathe. There wasn't this, Platonic Gnostic distinction between the soul and the body. Everything was just one thing. It wasn't that the body contained a soul, it's that the body was a living soul. Right. So again, spiritualizing things and dividing things into soul and body, that did not come until much later. Like, it's a historically much newer idea.
It's making me think of like this exploration right here. This sense of like if I go on a walk, especially, in our town, in our area, it's like you go on a walk, and if you are open with your senses, which is actually somewhat hard to do if you like, I think there's a lot, well, I know I grew up very like disembodied in a sense, right? It's just like very blocked off from connection with my body. So if we're open like sensorially and stuff like that, there's so much pleasure in it, right? It's like you've got birds in the trees and either rain on your skin or sun on your skin, or there's like, it's, the flowers of spring or that kind of like mossiness of, fall or winter, whatever animals are about and things that are growing. And, I was walking this morning and I'm like, you pass some of these lots that are, well, in my area, it's mostly houses, but then you have these lots that are just overgrown. But sometimes it's with flowers. And I walked by this one and there was just a scent of, I don't even know which flowers because I'm not familiar with them, but the smell changed as like I passed this particular lot. And it happened twice. It happened once with some flowers and once with like some pine or, like those sprucey smells. I don't know what they are. Or I can't differentiate them one from another, but one of those like woodsy smells. And so there is so much pleasure in that. And it's like, God made us to enjoy creation and all these things. But I realized when the word pleasure came to my mind, I was like, nope, that's the thing you shut down, right? Like this is another thing that.
Or sensuous, because that's the word that
Yes.
came to me, sensuous. It's
Yes.
it's a sense-based
Mhm.
being in the world.
Yes.
And I just had an amazing experience a couple of weeks ago. I went down to walk at the Owl Lot and I walked by Wild Roses with a Song. And there was another gal there with her dog. I don't have a clue who she was. And we had a moment of worship together. I go, this is just the most amazing thing. And we're both going, oh, this smells so good. And then we saw the flowers from the blackberries and the flowers from the salmonberries. And it was just this. I didn't mean to say anything.
Yeah.
This is just amazing. The smell was amazing. The pink was amazing.
Yeah.
It was sensuous.
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like I was taught to shut that down.
Yeah.
Like that's dangerous.
Evangelical culture is deeply suspicious of pleasure and deeply suspicious of feeling good.
So I know when I used to hike, it was always how fast were my miles.
Right.
I mean, that was, we backpack with, how long did it take us to go 5 miles? And I remember when I started walking at the beach, I was like, okay, I'm gonna walk 20 minutes back, right? How far can I get in 20 minutes? It's like, okay, I haven't done that now for probably a year, 2 or 3 years. But what a switch from,
When you're looking.
yeah, like trying to pay attention, not how fast am I going?
The last 2 days, we had a Kairos team meeting downstairs. And I had a number of things that I had to prepare to go into the meeting and stuff. I walked out to get into my truck to come down here. And we live in a mobile park, and right across the street is this field. And it's kind of surrounded with blackberries and stuff. And over the past couple of weeks, we've noticed a doe hanging out in there. Friday morning, when I went out to come down here, there was that doe licking a little one. And the little one was just standing there and letting her lick it clean. But I had to just stop and just watch for a little bit. And then I pulled my phone out, took a couple pictures of it. And I think you do that so you can relive it.
Totally different body experience. And I am not like a thrill chaser person at all. I don't like to not have control over situations. But we went to Disney with my sister last summer to help her corral all of the children. And there were a couple of rides that we went on that, first of all, they make them so much smoother now. So for us with aging bodies, it feels better than the old janky kind of things where you're yanking all over the place. But there were a couple of these rides that like you just felt like you were flying, and I can't describe the freedom I felt in that moment, even though it's literally just a giant screen in front of me, but you feel like you're flying and the water's rushing up against you when you go down into the area where the surf is, and I don't know, like it was one of those where I was like, I need to go back and do that again. But I don't know, it was something I hadn't experienced, just that inhibition of being like, I don't know, a feeling of lack of control, but also just like, I don't even, my brain didn't even know what to do with it, but it was kind of a really cool, I don't know, something was very foreign to me, but I was really surprised by how taken I was with it.
Mhm.
Obviously, somebody had done some preparing, some creating, some work to create the experience.
Mhm,
And it was a gift in a
Mhm.
sense.
mhm.
I mean, you paid for it, sure.
We didn't.
But,
It
but,
was not free. It was not free.
but,
It
I
was
mean,
worth the price of admission.
but it was still, there was an element of making it special.
Mhm.
As kids, you know, they experience pleasure until we screw them up.
Teach them as much.
They, it's
Yeah.
delightful to see,
Yeah.
and I know I've been hiking a lot this week and up at Hurricane Ridge and up the switchbacks in different places, and there's people from all over, you know, and when we see the deer, you know, we think, oh, get out of my garden, and, or whatever, you know, I mean, it's always fun to see. I fall in love again when the new babies come, but anyway, so there was kind of a boy band, all these, young, or they weren't all young, but male deer, you know, those have kicked them out and they're hanging out. They were in the velvet. And there was a whole bunch of them, and there were somebody from, I think she said they were from St. Petersburg. And they were taking pictures and they were really, they didn't want to go on because there was a deer on the trail, you know, this kind of thing, you know, and they're just totally fascinated. And, but it's, I notice sometimes with some of my adult friends, it's just fun to hike with them because they get excited about everything, you know, like, you know, I mean, they have that, they could just really get childlike, yeah, excitement when they see something.
Mhm.
And sometimes we just take things for granted and it kind of wakes you up.
Yeah, especially when they're eating the things that I planted.
I know.
I know.
And I'm like, well, then I have a different emotional experience.
They went, are these elk? You could go, it's all right, just go ahead and look it off.
There was a practice at the end of the chapter where she encouraged you to like, you know, sit and then there was like kind of these questions. Did anybody do that? What's the question?
It was like
It
4
was
days
kinda
ago.
like,
What
are
were they
you-
again?
No.
Yeah, well, let's just bring it back to the present. So she basically just kind of says, okay, you know, settle into a comfort position or whatever, but then she kind of says, invite God to speak to you through your body, or just notice how you feel about life in your body. Are you embarrassed about it? Do you enjoy it? What happens inside when you consider the idea of honoring your body or meeting God in your body? And then she goes on, what is the condition of your body these days? Have you been caring for it consistently? She gives some examples. Or have you been ignoring it or even abusing it in some way? Sit with your awareness, like what comes up for you, and talk to God about it and listen for his response. Is there anything your body's trying to tell you? Like these kinds of things. Um, did anybody do that? Does anything come up presently when you hear that?
Well, it kind of stimulated me to look at my sleep habits, you know, like this time of year. It's still light and you wanna stay up late. And then the cats are there at 5 or so thinking, wow, we could get up. And,
Yeah,
so I tried to go to bed a little earlier. I tried to not use any devices.
Ah,
I was just kind of asking myself how these things impact my sleep.
yeah, how did it feel to change it up? Like, did you have a good result? And also, how did it feel to respond to that nudge that you had?
Well, I was kind of, I was using my Fitbit to kind of track my sleeping, and how much was I spending in deep sleep and uh light sleep and dream and whatnot. And that was interesting, and I did see that I felt better. My readiness was a little higher if I went to bed a little earlier. But sometimes it's tempting to. I realized I hadn't done one of the word games I do every morning. But last night, I had to do connections. Yeah. So, it's harder, but I do think that when you consciously think about, if what you're eating is affecting this, or exercising, or watching too much screen time or something.
There's thoughts about, you kind of feel like if you do everything right, everything in your body is gonna always work as well as it ever did. And that isn't necessarily true.
Yeah. No, that's really the case.
I think that's just speaking as a health practitioner, though, like I have this conversation probably 40% of my day. Just that we have this idea that things have to be a certain way to work a certain way, and that is just going to continue indefinitely. And there is a really big grieving process that I deal with people that have been fortunate enough to never had anything happen to them their entire life until they hit their 70s, and all of a sudden they feel betrayed in some way. And it's like, well, I've worked with people that have had problems a lot earlier than you, so you're just very blessed, and I'm glad. But we can acknowledge this as a sense of grieving and understand this. But this concept in the medical world of broken things need to be fixed. And I have conversations with people all the time that, your body is resilient, number one, and we can make things work that aren't perfect. We just have to do some workarounds, and maybe we have to do things differently, right? So I talk with people all the time, well, I can't garden for 6 hours. And I was like, well, I can't garden for 6 hours either. But what I do is I do this, and then we take a break and go do this. And I'm not even saying you have to stop, just go pick a different body position and do something else, and then come back to it. We just strategize a different way to do it. And instead of being locked into this idea that like, this is the right way that we have to do things, but there is a mental reorganization that has to happen with those things.
The thought process.
And I think it's fine to grieve the loss part of it because we need to do that. But there's also an opportunity to find a different way to do things. And I use this example a lot. There's a documentary that we watched that one of the actors from the Marvel movies put together on the Disney Channel. And he went through and like tested his body to the limits and all these things. So like one of them was fasting, and one was learning how to break through his fear of heights, and one was like swimming in the Arctic or something. I don't know. His final one was aging and dying. And I think every human needs to watch this episode. They put him in a fake retirement community with a bunch of actors, and they put him in a body suit that made him like, they put rubber bands between his arms and his body, and they put like a casing around his neck so he couldn't move, and put glasses on so his eyes were less focused. And they put him in a senior exercise class. This guy is like a major weightlifter, right? And he sat there and just was like struggling and struggling. They introduced him to a man afterwards whose job was, he was a stunt double and was a martial arts specialist in movies and stuff. And then he injured his knee at one point in his life, and that went away. And he said at that point in time, he was really frustrated, but he found Tai Chi. And he said he unlocked some things for himself in that practice that he's like, I never would have been able to find in my former method of practice. And just that wisdom and ability to say, when I looked at things differently, it's not even that I necessarily lost something, I gained something that I wouldn't have had before. And so that kind of taught him, when you do exercise, instead of fighting your body, listen to your body and live through your body in a new way. It was just really profound to me. And I use that example with my patients all the time because, again, I don't want to deny the loss part because I think that is a very real thing. But I think if we only focus on that, we don't look at the possibilities of other things that we can encounter. It's just a challenging road to walk, I think.
I think grieving is there because it puts us in a position to want to learn how to come out of it. A few years ago, my wife and I moved from our 2-story house because she couldn't navigate stairs anymore. And we bought a mobile home that needed a ton of work. And so I was constantly working on this thing. I still have work to do. But she didn't understand why I couldn't just stick with one thing and get it done. And I said, my body won't do that anymore. I used to do that stuff for you. That was fine, but I can't do it anymore. I can stick with it until I die. But what good is that to you?
It's interesting. I noticed a little bit of the red between what you just said, Chris, and something that Nikki had said. It might even be related to what is behind what you just said, Jen, but I suspect that in our current Western culture, so certainly not all cultures in all times and all places, but in this one, so much of our existence that we catch from culture is really about producing, meeting objectives, we want to do the thing and we need to fix the thing. And it is these it's very outcome oriented, right? So you were kind of mentioning how quickly can I get to the beach, right? Like there's this, that's what I'm here for. I'm pushing myself, I'm whatever. That connects for me, Chris, with what you were saying, because it's you might have to repeat what you said, but it was it's not doing that, right? There's a thing that you want it to do.
Objective goals.
Objective goals. And when those are thwarted for some reason, it feels like, you didn't say this, but it's we can imagine that it's an injustice or that this is what life is about, right? Is being able to meet our goals and objectives and stuff like that. Hear me saying that really loosely. I'm not putting the exact words to that, but just that essentially, maybe more than other cultures at other times or in other places, we just have a sense that we should be achieving something. That's why we're here. Even in a lot of Christian messaging, right? It's you're achieving something for God, or you're getting to this place, or you're getting this landmark or whatever. And then the things that are thwarting that are to be overcome, right? Or to be fixed or to be whatever. And I'm sure there's a place for that. But since I feel like culture is so much more heavily on that side, it's I think that the other possibility, I think that there is another possibility, right? Which is that and I think it's been coming up in this conversation, but God gave us things to enjoy them, right? Creation to enjoy it. And I think that there's a sense in which, I wonder if all of our human achievements in a bit, it's when your 3-year-old shows you this thing that they made for you, it's you're thrilled, but you're not impressed, right? Does that make sense? And I feel our offerings to God are like that. He's well, that's lovely, but he didn't need it. It's not he can't do it himself, right? It's not that, it's that it's something else, right? And we offer those. But I think that there might be something different about the enjoyment or the just coming alive inside of what he made. This thing says God did this thing and it was good. And I am sharing in what he gave. Does this mean it's I'm sharing inside of it? I don't have words for this, right? But it's it's beyond all of the human tinkerings. And to some degree, it's all more accessible in more stages and circumstances of life and achieving. Right, like I've felt for the, like, since I hit 30, basically, it's like I like to do stuff, right? I like to have projects, I like to achieve things, but it has felt like at every turn, life is like, well, you're gonna have to do this. Well, we've got this. Well, we've got this, right? And here we are, like almost 20 years later. And it's like, well, life's circumstances, if I tend to them and understand that God's asking me to like give and serve and do these other things, I wouldn't in any way, or I don't like measure up in some kind of a, what have you done with your life? Like kind of way, right? But I would have had accessible to me that lens if it was like, well, what is God doing here? Who is he here? Like there's gonna be a breeze, there's gonna be these things he's created, there's people, and there can be loveliness even in suffering and things like that. And so I suspect one of these things is way more universally accessible. And the other is something that I think hangs us up quite a bit. Anyway, I didn't mean to like overtalk that if I did, but it's interesting that it's like, yeah, this sense of our bodies not being up to what we want them to do. And I wonder if there's like this, what if that's okay? Just kind of.
Well, but going back to what you talked about the body of Christ, I think sometimes one person's challenge or suffering or whatever space that is opens the door for someone else in the body to step in and show a gift or be an agent of the spirit in a way that if that hadn't been there, they wouldn't be able to do that. And I was just thinking about that this week because my mom, they had a big storm and one of her trees, a big branch came down, and my mom's a full-time caregiver for my dad, and he's like full max care. And she's also a Midwesterner who never wants to be indebted to anyone. And so the neighbors behind are very sweet people. And she's like, John came over and he was trying to help me clean this up. And he saw that I was kind of hot and tired. And he said, he told me to go inside. And he's like, and I didn't want to go inside because I didn't want him. He's got other things to do. And I'm like, Mom, just let him be a blessing to you. He sees what you do every day that you never ask for help for. And just let he gets joy out of this because he's a Christian too. He wants to do these things. So just let him do it. Like he loves this stuff. So let him love on you. Like but I think we have this feel that like if we're not productive or we're not doing something, that there's something deficient. But I've tried to look at it that way. Like, what if the thing I can't keep up with offers an opportunity for someone else to be a gift or a joy to someone else? And maybe it's not just about me,
And interestingly, like those are also the most connecting, like in a world right now, right, where we're largely disconnected. It's like when somebody, I mean, I'm gonna imagine that we're entering into that in a good spirit, right? Like not my identity and my worth is based on helping, so you must let me help you in the way that I want to help you, right? Like it's not that, but more of like, hey, there's, why don't you just like let me do this thing, or let's do it together or whatever. That becomes communal what was individual. And I hadn't thought about that in that way, but it's like you get both of the things. You get like people being able to use their gifting and the blessing that is for them to serve one another. And also there's often like a real, like I can think of some times in my life when there were deep needs either for us or for somebody around us, and people who came in person. We kind of have some different history now, right? And different relationship and stuff like that, or even just some mutuality in everyday life, right? It's like, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, we're at time. I'm gonna close this in prayer and give one reflective prompt. So I'll be quiet for a second as you think about that, and then we'll be done. Okay, as we wrap up, I wonder and invite you to think about what God is bringing up for you. What thread is there for you to get curious about? It might be an element of health or the body that you've been neglecting. It might be something you you would enjoy, but haven't felt the freedom to do so. maybe it's something totally outside of that. But for some reason, it's percolating to the top of your mind. What is it? If nothing's coming to mind, just enjoy the space. God, I thank you for our time together. I thank you for nudging us, sure, in these practices that you're bringing up for us and giving us the opportunity to participate in. And also in this time together, your spirit through others in the group. I know I am being encouraged, and new threads are arising, and you're speaking to me through others in the group. We thank you for that. And I pray that you would help us notice you more in the week and just attend to those little nudges when they come up. It's in your name we pray. Amen.